Hello, everybody, to this evening sound event, the first one in English from our International Professional Association of Sound Massage Therapy. And also warmly welcome to Nicole Haircut from the Peter Hess Institute. She will help me to translate this evening. And yes, I'm glad that we are doing our first English sound evening. All the last ones were in German. But now I want to welcome very warmly also Professor Dr. Thilo Hinterberger. He will be a speaker from our Congress 22 next year. And he was also a speaker from the last Congress. So yeah, welcome Thilo.
Yeah, hello all together. Have a nice evening. Yeah, so
Would you like to introduce yourself just of a short time and say a little bit how this evening will
yeah, okay, I will do so. Thank you for the introduction. And yeah, my name is Thilo Hinterberger. I'm a professor for applied consciousness sciences in Regensburg here in Germany. And so originally I'm a physicist, but for a long time, since a long time, I'm working with brain imaging methods and yeah, doing research in many areas around the topic of consciousness. So very interdisciplinary. I'm located in the psychosomatic medicine center here in Regensburg. But I'm doing also studies with meditation, research, spirituality, and with sound, doing research retreats together with a good friend. He's a musician. We are doing research retreats twice a year normally. And so you are also welcome to join one if you can speak German, or because we don't translate that in English.
yeah.
But anyway, yeah, and so I'm very happy to talk about sound because this is my, yeah, I would like to say it's my favorite topic. Yeah.
Great.
And so this evening I would like to make the issues I was talking in the last meetings here in the sound congresses a little bit available to the English speaking part of the community.
Thank you for that, Thilo.
Yeah, so I have prepared a little PowerPoint presentation, so which I would like to share with you now. And after this, we will have some time to discuss your open questions and yeah, whatever we will like to share.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you so much, Thilo. And for everyone, you can write your questions in the chat because we are streaming live on Facebook and you're not allowed to speak with video and audio. But you can write all the questions in the chat, and at the end we will come back, Nicole and me, and then we will discuss all together. So thank you, Thilo, and everyone have a good time now.
Okay. Yeah. So I share my video screen, my presentation with you now. Okay. Yeah. So the topic of today is experiencing lifetime through sound. So, which is the time, the aspect of time is a very essential aspect in the domain of sound. And therefore, I would like to invite you just to share some thoughts about sound. which are often neglected properties, and also the uniqueness of these properties of sound and its great potentiality. And therefore, I first of all would like to introduce the basic differences between listening and seeing. Listening and seeing leads to basically different qualities in our conscious perception. And the reason why for this is based in the different properties of sound and light, also its physical properties, but also the properties how sound and light is processed in our brains. And a little bit of it I would like to share now in the next slides. So what is the difference between seeing and listening? So, or in other words, what are the properties of visual and auditory perception? And in order to understand, or by answering these questions, we will later on have maybe a deeper understanding of why sound is so special in its experience and has the potential to lead us or to guide us into very deep forms of our personal and also spiritual experiences. And to understand this, we can go back just to the physics of vision and audition. So let's start with the visual perception. The light has an optical wavelength of smaller than 1 micrometers. And this is the reason why it is very well suited for resolving spatial structures. So the space can be grasped by our eyes, and our eyes are formed with many pixels of resolution, so we can have detailed spatial structures which we can perceive through light. And the temporal resolution of the vision is quite limited. So it's less than 25 frames per second or pictures per second, which we can process. And even that is sometimes too much. So in the domain of light, we see things which are not alternating too fast. So it's very constant reality which is shown as in the light. And also when we look at the color spectrum, so the which is actually the frequency spectrum of the light wavelengths. This is between 400 and 800 nanometers, which is about 1 octave. And 1 octave, octave, we normally use the word octave only in the domain of sound, but there we see that within this octave, there is a huge amount of different color shades we can distinguish. But on the other hand, this is a very limited field in the whole electromagnetic spectrum. So what we see is a quite narrow frequency band, but which is able to give us a very precise picture of the structure of space and the matter which is in space. So it's a material perception, form of perception. So it opens up the world of things. This is how I would like to frame it. And by reflecting, so light is, normally we don't look in the light sources directly, so normally we see the reflections of the light on the surface of the things. So we normally don't look through the things, and if we look through them, they become invisible. So what we see normally is the reflection on the surface of things, which is a limitation uh, of our vision. So we always look at boundaries. So the visual perception represents boundaries to us, boundaries of the material reality. And there is also, due to the constants in time, so normally objects are stable and don't suddenly disappear. And so they are the things we think that they exist. Everything we see exists, and therefore we have or we are able to find a rich variety of concepts for it. So everything we see, we can give a name, we can make a concept out of it. This is a chair, this is a monitor, this is a camera, this is a window, and everything I have here, I can give names to it, I can conceptualize it. And with these concepts, in our consciousness, we have to be aware that whenever we give a concept to a perception, it is a kind of a simplification, and we reduce the object, the real object, to a model of this object, to a model, a simplified model. And this reduction is slightly preventing us from grasping another reality which could be behind this object or within this object. So therefore, conceptualizations are always, on one hand, they are a big help for us in order to work with them, to manage the world. And on the other hand, they are also a limitation. This is something we should have in mind, but in in general, concepts are very helpful constructions to us. Yeah, and therefore these conceptualization of the visual world is or is maybe the reason also, or is an instrument for building up an analytical thinking. So conceptual perception constitutes our analytical thinking, and analytical thinking is something which in our mind is also a kind of a spatial representation, or connected to a spatial representation in the mind. Yeah, and as I said, things we see normally don't just come up or appear and disappear suddenly. Usually objects are stable and have a continuity in past and presence. So the visual domain, or the the process of seeing, opens up the world of facts and give us certainty. And this kind of certainty is a property, an essential property of seeing, because it gives us, in our feeling, in our attitude of being, it gives us safety and security. So now, what is the world of audition? When we listen, then we are hearing acoustical signals, which is movements of air within a wavelength of 1 centimeter to larger than 10 meters. This is the range of 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz. And this means that in the auditory domain, we cannot resolve so clearly the details. It is not because we only have 2 ears and many, many sensors in the eyes or many, many pixels of the eyes retina. It is because the principal wavelength of light and sound are so different. So with sound, with this large wavelength, we can only get yeah, a slight idea of where something is and where many things are. So it opens up predominantly temporal structures. So the strength of audition is actually in time, in the perception of temporal processes. And when we go to rhythm, rhythm is a structure in time, but each sound, each special sound is also a structure in sound. When we hear the singing of a singing bowl, the sound of a singing bowl, or the singing of a bird, for example, the bird singing is a structure, not only within the rhythm, but also within the shape of the frequencies of the tone, of the vibrations, and everything which is in it. So we have a huge variety. It's not only the frequency domain from 20 to 20 kilohertz. It is more also the domain of vibrations and rhythms of smaller than 1 hertz. So in total, we have 10 octaves plus in the domain of rhythm and vibrations, another 7 octaves. So which would be then about 17 octaves even, which we have to our availability in the domain of sound. Yeah, and while in vision we see the world of things, sound is something that is untouchable. It's unseizable. So we cannot grasp it. It is something that can be perceived and that is not necessary to grasp. And that doesn't mean only to grasp it in the material world. It's also we cannot grasp it in the temporal structure. So it is temporally unique, but I will come later on to that aspect. It's important in contrast to the surface of things we see by in the visual. The sound conveys inner properties of what the sound is producing. So for example, when we look at a piano or at a large gong or a singing bowl, we cannot really, or there is no way to know about its sound. And when we hear the sound of this piano, we hear everything that is vibrating within the piano. Not only the strings, but also the properties of the material, of the wood the piano is made of, and all the other materials which are contributing to the sound. So it opens up a space, so we don't hear limits. There's an interesting experiment. If you have a gong at home or something, or even a singing bowl, a larger one, and you go very close to it, you have a kind of a boundary in front of you. But as you play the singing bowl or the gong, and just listen to it, close the eyes and listen to it, you will experience a whole space of sound. So it will open up a space. And even if you are, the same is when you are in a cathedral, in a big church, and you listen to the sound, you hear the the whole majority of this space. And this is a unique property, that we don't listen to boundaries here. but we much more become an impression of the size of the space. What is very important is that sounds, when they are not analyzed, when they are just perceived, they are concept free. They are free of concepts, and this opens up the possibility of a huge variety of different experiences, of individual experiences, and for many interpretations. So the meaning which is in the sound is at first instance, it's free. And this is also the the reason why sound has a lot of emotional qualities, the qualia, a very special form of qualities. And from a neuroscientific perspective, there are or we have to see that, or we have to know that when we look where the sound is processed in the brain, it is processed very close to the limbic system, or in many areas which are even close to the brain stem. So in areas which are very basal and connected to the emotional processing, and not to the analytical thinking in the neocortex, which is more the field where vision is processed. So there is also a difference in here. Yeah. And very importantly, events of sounds are existing in each moment, in each present moment only. So sound is something that is a creation of the moment. It is a creation without past and limited in future. Without past means that when you just close your eyes and listen, there is no hint, no idea which you can get what is coming next. So it's a surprise. Each event of sound is a surprise. And therefore, I'd say it's without a past, because the causality of sound lies in the non-auditory domain. So it's not in the domain of the of audition. So we cannot hear where the sound is coming from, and each sound is limited in the future, goes away. So therefore we only have the present moment to our availability. And when we listen to something that exists in the present now, and we have to get it there. And that's different from seeing. When you look at something, you know that if I don't get it now what it is, I can look at it later on again, and I will have the chance to see that again. But when listening, there is no chance to listen to it again, except when we are using recording technologies or music, reproduction music. I will come to this also later. But that's a very important property, which has a lot to do with our ability to surrender to the uncertainty, to the domain of potentiality, of possibilities, what could be. And when you compare people who are blind to compare to people who are deaf and dumb, so the blind people have much more trust in the world, have much more yeah, confidence and trust. And that is the property which comes from all these properties I have now shown to you. Yeah, so, oops, I have here some error. Rhythm should be meaning of sound and rhythm. There are the different meanings of the different sound sources are given to the sound, but in general, these sounds and rhythms are in general unassigned containers of meaning. So we can fill the sound with different meanings, and maybe we can also let it unassigned and see how it fills by itself. And there comes the difference between free sound and reproduction music. In the reproduction music, we have melodies. There is, on one hand, the joy of recognition, but on the other hand, yeah, it is the defined future. So we know what is coming next, and this is a way of where this, yeah, this kind of surrender to the uncertainty doesn't take place. So it's not necessary anymore. On the other hand, we have reproducible effects because some structures and orders in rhythm and melody are quite pleasant and have interesting effects to us. And on the other hand, free sound experiences, they are sudden events without an history, and the future is uncertain. And that supports our mindful present. Structures are novel and unpredictable. And so when we look at the mental effects of the reproduction music, it gives us a kind of reliability, security, and beauty of a composition. This is what we can experience. But on the other hand, the value in it is, yeah, the value of the reproduction music is in its availability and accessibility. So we can possess this kind of music. And on the other hand, when we look at the mental effects of the free sound experience, then it supports the devotion to the uncertainty and the openness and the spontaneity. It is also what we can call mindfulness. So mindfulness is defined as, on the one hand, being present in the moment, on the other hand, accepting whatever our experience of the moment is. And these two parts can be experienced in sound. Acceptance by its by its freedom in its meaning, and in the presence by the moment. So the value of this free sound experience is actually in each moment of time, in the novelty and the intangible. Yeah, and therefore I would say experiencing nature by listening to it means to perceive the temporal in it and the uniqueness of each moment. Yeah, and this is very, very important because this temporal creativity is something which absolutely is so basic that it is the basic or the essence of life, of creation, of many kinds of creation. And I would like to describe that a little bit and show a few properties of what actually temporal processes are able to do. Khalil Gibran had said that in another way of time, you would like to make a stream upon whose bank you would sit and watch its flowing. But yet the timeless in you is aware of life's timelessness and knows that yesterday is but today's memory and tomorrow is today's dream. So that means that actually there is only the presence available to us. So time is a kind of an artifact of our thinking, of our perception, of what we are making out of our experiences, of the series of experiences we have. But actually, everything that happens in this present now. And this is why it's so interesting to look at the self-organizing processes and therefore the emergence of life, which has a lot to do with the alterations of structures or the building up of structures in each moment of time. This is an ice flower on the window where you see the structures which are growing in the crystals of ice. And it would be nice to have it actually in this temporal set, but now I have only the static picture of it, the result, but it's the result of actually a temporal process. And the introduction, and therefore I would like to introduce you into the power of time, of how structures can evolve in temporal processes, in simple temporal processes. So for example, when we study very simple mathematical algorithms, we see here one algorithm which is just doing an iteration process all the time, the same stupid formula, which is this one. So this while loop is just adding for three variables x, y, z, and this is the formula, how it's connected, how it's calculated, and there is the xy plane here drawn, and on this xy plane you will see then this structure evolving. You don't see that in this formula statically, but in order to grasp this structure or to get the power of what is hidden in this static structure, you have to do it in a temporal process over and over again, and then it starts producing such a structural figure. So creativity is a result of each instant now. Every moment in time contributes to the creation of structural variety, and this is also valid for life and is also valid for what is actually happening when we listen to the world. Listening creates also structures within our mental system, within our neuronal network in the brain, actually. But there we have much broader variety of variables. And this is, for example, the Mandelbrot set. It's also a very simple formula with which is the z is z squared plus c, and that is the domain of z, which is actually complex figures, so an imaginary and a real part of a number. And there is, and it is also very interesting that just by this small alteration and iteration process, this recursion of always the same simple formula produces an infinitely complex structure. And this is the power of time. So when we look at the at this structure, we can get into the boundaries here and find similar structures. We find different varieties of this structure, and even so, some of those forms. And so this is actually the creativity of time, and nobody would see it in a static in the static essence of this formula. So the formula is just a kind of a basic seed of what we can see. Yeah, and this is another dimension of that. Yeah. We can see in nature also these such self-similar structures, like here, or in many other things, and they are all created by the contribution of various parameters and variables which interchange or exchange information with each other. And the term how this is called is synergetics, and this synergetics is a term that was in the 90s, no, in the 80s, I think it was propagated by Hermann Haken, a physicist who developed this idea of synergetics, of the of how things create structures just by interacting with each other. And these synergetic principles, they also exist in psychological fields. And here, this is a book about this. I hope maybe this is also available in English. Yeah, and therefore, or this means that just in our brain there are interactions which are uncertain and and we have a huge variety of variables. So the structures and forms which can actually appear in our brain by listening, they are completely creative, and and even randomness can lead to kind of beauty when it's presented in a semi structured way. So this is a short sequence, a short sound sequence of just random signals. And when you listen to it, you can find structures, you can find rhythms, kind of beauty maybe, but it can be random. And with the singing bowls, you have very similar principles. You can play the singing bowls randomly, and it will create an atmosphere. And this is a kind of beauty which is created within us. So the stimulus can be simple, and we only have to be able to let our complex system of consciousness work on itself. Yeah. And what I did is, for example, in order to make a bit kind of a more complex but also quite random kind of music, is I recorded with an EEG amplifier. That is an amplifier which is normally used to measure the signals from the brain or other physiological signals like heart rate or muscle tension or whatever. So the EEG amplifier is also able to measure signals from plants, from flowers, from trees. And what we can see there is that there are, due to the manifold electric processes, because there are electrolytes going within the water which is flowing through the plants, and there are electric charges collected on some parts, and they discharge suddenly, and within each few seconds you will hear, or you will get a small discharge signal. And yeah, this is what the lives cycle of these plants are. So then we can listen to the processes of the plants. So plants are not just so silent and so quiet as we perceive them. Within the plants, there is a rich life, especially in springtime, going on. And therefore, when we want to get this, the auditory domain, which means when we put those impulses from the plants to instruments and play them as a kind of melody, as a kind of sound, sound play, then we can get an idea of the life of the plants. And so I created a whole CD of the flowers in spring. It's called Springtime, the Florasonium CD. You can get it on the internet with www.florasonium.de. And you can listen there to many, many flowers of the plants. And just look also to the plants which I have recorded. In the CD, you can see all the plants as well in a booklet. And for example, this is a small piece. And it depends on how you choose the instruments and how we put the parameters. Then we can make different sounds and can adapt them a little bit to the properties of this of these plants. And so there is also some music of the evening primroses, which is my favorite because it starts blooming every evening when the sun is going down. Very interesting. Then it opens very suddenly. The flower. So sound can lead us in a kind of a form of transcendence. Sound is, and it's a summary of what I wanted to say also here in this presentation. Sound is concept free. It dissolves attachment to concepts. So this is a very important property, how sound is interacting with our consciousness and our mental processes. It dissolves the attachments to the concepts, and it liberates for acategorical perceptions. So as we say, when vision was thinking in categories, and sound liberates then for acategorical perceptions. It is a continuing presence. It needs and gives trust. Sound can expand the interior mental space. It enables to perceive the inconceivable, and sound can therefore pave the way for transcendence and experiences of the transcendent realm. I thank you for sharing your time with me, for listening. And now I would like to invite you for a few questions, for discussion, whatever you want to share with us now. Be welcome.
So many thanks to you, Thilo, for this interesting lecture. And Thilo, there's a question in the chat. Just missed the Instagram account of Thilo. Do you have one? So
I don't have an
you
Instagram
have
account, no.
one. Okay.
I saw there was another question about the way how the sounds are produced.
Mhm.
So maybe this is something I haven't talked about that. So actually, the software I was programming on my own, and it's a part of brain-computer interface software. So my professional research topic is also developing brain-computer interfaces, which are kind of programs which can be used for transferring the signals of the brain, so that we can write words and letters to the computer just by thinking, just with our thoughts. And this software I have modified and built in sonification device, so that we can also listen to our brain processes. And when I did that, I was creating brain music. And when I did that, I thought, oh, what is happening if I would just take the signals from the plants? And I experimented with that. And I realized that plants are much quieter than our brains. Our brains are very hectic, very active and chaotic in the signals. And the plants, they have just a smoother form of signals. And this creates a much more, yeah, a much more harmonic and better to hear music. And therefore I decided to make a whole CD out of the flowers of the spring, by listening to the snowdrop as you saw it, as you heard it, or to the also to the crocus, the grass, the listening to the growing grass, and to the primrose, the daffodil, the tulip, the elderbush, and so on. And there are different plants which all have their certain shape. And the instrumentation, actually, I try to choose instruments which are a little bit resembling the attitude or the mood which comes from these plants. So this is a kind of what I brought into the process. But the plants were actually playing the music. I was just building up the orchestra and the instrument, and the plants are playing on the instrument.
I really can recommend your CD. It's wonderful. I love it. I also have it at home. Yes. Are there any questions in the chat? Somebody types, that means we are living in a world which is much more than what we see and think about. We are within this world and should behave that with respect. Yes, you are so right. Yeah. So I'm just
I
looking.
see a question there. They ask you, Thilo, if you have taken any brain signals measurements while giving a sound massage.
Yes, we have done a study with brain signals during sound massage, and we also have presented that. And maybe yeah, there is some data available here. I think I have in the last someone I have presented the results, and we also will publish them. But that's a scientific presentation, not not a piece of art, as this is.
And perhaps you will talk about this at our Sound Congress in 22, because you're one of the lecturers there. And everyone who was not here at the beginning, our Sound Congress 22 is online since Tuesday this week. So you can have a look at our new website, www.soundcongress.com. I've written it in the chat. And there are also our English video packages from this year's Congress. And there is also a lecture from Thilo. So you can buy it also in English now. So just have a look at our website.
Anyway, thank you for being with us now. And thanks that I could present this to you.
Yeah, thank you too.
I just wanted to say, yes, I have been taking place on your last events on the congresses. I think when it was happened, I always joined that speech of yours, and it was very inspiring each time. So really come to the Congress and look at those speeches. They are very, very good.
Ja. Und wir sind auch neugierig, vielleicht kannst du das nochmal übersetzen, Nicole. Eben, du hast ja mit einer Doktorandin wirklich Messungen auch an uns durchgeführt während der Klangmassage, und wir sind wirklich gespannt, was da rauskommen wird.
So we're really curious about the researches have been taken place with one of with Thilo and one of his participants while giving sound massage, and how the brain waves are. And so we're really curious about what the results are, and like the presentation, to hear what effect is there.
Yes, I will present these results here as well.
Okay. Then then just have a wonderful evening, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us today's evening. And see you in 2 weeks for at the evening with Sound Yoga with Janine. And also Thilo, thank you for joining us today and opening up our English evening sound events. And until the next time. And also thank you, Nicole, for joining us.
It was a pleasure.
A little bit with translating. And I hope everybody will get new informations today's evening, and you have enjoyed the wonderful plant music as well. So see you soon, and bye to everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.